Hi, everyone. This is Joan Raymond with a Heart for Writing, and today we're going to ask the question and get answers on what's the difference between writing a mystery novel and writing an interactive mystery production. Definitely some differences. Today, my guest is Daniel Stallings. He's a lifelong lover of mystery and detective fiction. He's also the founder and artistic director of Master Mystery Productions. And let's welcome Daniel. Hi, Daniel. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
That's great. I mean, I'm great. Thank you. And I just love we were talking about this ahead of time. He's not sure how he went black and white, but I think it totally fits the, the theme of what he writes. So, I met Daniel, it was 5 to 6 years ago, and he did, his company put on an interactive murder mystery for our writers club, Writers of Kern. And he's actually president of his writers club, which is the Eastern Sierra branch or the Ridgeview Writers. And
Ridge Riders.
Ridge Writers, thank you. Um, and these are all branches of the California Writers Club, which I think there's like 24 or so in the state of California. So anyway, but I met him. He put on this amazing production where all the different tables got to figure out who the murderer was while the actual actors were with us. And it was a lot of fun. So what is the difference, Daniel, between writing a mystery novel, which you have done, and we're going to talk about that, and writing an interactive mystery production?
So I think that they share a lot of similarities. Obviously, writing a mysteries, and I take a great deal of pride in the plotting. Uh, my hero is Agatha Christie, so I try to live up to Christie as best I can. Uh, but the main difference is in how the media is supposed to be enjoyed by whoever is reading it or watching it. So, when you write a novel, obviously you have the gift of narrative that you can use. You don't have to always rely on just dialogue, whereas with a play, it is just dialogue.
Mhm.
And you cannot lovingly describe, a setting or how a clue is supposed to look. You have to create that. You have to physically just create a setting or a clue and let it speak for itself. You don't have characters, monologuing, or at least I don't prefer characters monologuing about, you know, how the set is supposed to look. You're just supposed to show them. It is the ultimate show, don't tell. How writing a theatrical production. So that is the main thing, is that how I give clues or transfer information to a reader or an audience is entirely different. So I can, with a novel, have a chance to use narrative to kind of hide clues. I can describe a setting and sneak clues in there and not have it have to be explained by someone. Whereas for a production, an actor usually has to say something. If you're not going to show it, you have to have an actor say something if it's that important.
Mhm. So you said that you don't like the actors to break the fourth wall or whatever. I know Shakespeare did that a lot, and so for you, it's easier just to show and have the prop or have them look at it a certain way or whatever. Correct?
So I don't mind if actors break the fourth wall. It depends on the production, on what style of show I'm writing. So for some cases, we would have the actors mingle among the audience, talk to them,
Right.
interact with them. A current production I'm doing is going to have a lot of that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I do think I really respect a reader's and audience's general intelligence. I really do. I do not want to baby them. I do not want to think that they don't know better or that they can't figure it out for themselves. So I make it an interesting puzzle, and I don't want to draw too many bells and whistles to things, because I think that it's a very sort of novice sort of way of approaching a mystery is to make it very linear and very point A leads to point B to point C. And I don't think that respects an audience's intelligence all that much. So I create webs, is how I think of it. So point A leads to point D, leads to point X, leads to point F. And they will be able to figure it out if they just sort of patiently go through it and think critically about what everything is supposed to mean.
Right.
And that's where I think I like to work as a mystery writer and doing mystery plays, is that I allow the audience to draw their own conclusions, and that I will not baby them through the process. I will show them everything, and then they can put together the pieces, because all the pieces will be there. That's fair play for me.
Right, right. And a few red herrings here and there, obviously, because
Of course, just a little, but I like to think they're all connected, but what they mean, it depends on how you turn, it's like a prism. How you turn it depends on how the light shines.
Right. I like that. I like that analogy. And the difference is, I know when we attended your production, the actors were among us. I mean, we could actually talk to them, if I remember right. We could ask them a question, or we could, we could. It was pretty cool, because it's almost like, I mean, for me, I write cozy mysteries, but it'd be like all of my characters coming to life, and the reader able to say, hey, why did this happen? And it's you got to think 3D. I know that you don't think on one plane. You think on a lot of different layers at the same time, which I think is fascinating. So, what is your process? And I mean, from idea to writing, and then I know you have to do tryouts and casting and costumes and.
So for a show, specifically for an interactive mystery show, I generally start with a theme. Sometimes that comes from a client. They want a specific style. They're like, I want to do a 1920s party. I'm like, okay, so 1920s is the theme. But if I'm doing it, say I'm pitching a show to a venue to do as a partnership show, which I've done, I will try and think of themes that fit the venue. We do a lot of site-specific theater, which means that we tailor our production to fit in its venue and feel at home there. So, for instance, just this past year, we were in a record store that had a lovely kind of nightclub feel to it. So I said, okay, I'm not putting on Pride and Prejudice here. What could be really cool, we could do a rocker version, but it's a rock star kind of place. So I'm like, let's do a 1980s nightclub as a theme. So I start with a theme that fits its venue as comfortably as possible, because then that's less work and I don't have to spend as much money building sets. The venue is the set. And from there, then I do a whole bunch of research into the era or into the world that I want to write about, just to understand what are kind of the key features, because, audiences would come in with some preconceived notions of kind of what they want to see. I don't have to include everything, but I'm like, what do I think stands out to me as an element I want to write about, and what I think an audience member will get joy out of seeing? For instance, for the 80s show, I was like, well, what about a Madonna wannabe? I think we need somebody dressed as Madonna, because she was, especially at that time, just, the fashion icon that all of the young women would want to dress as. And so it's like, okay, how do I do with that? Well, if I set this, say, in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, what about a Madonna impersonator as the story? She's a celebrity lookalike. Well, why would she be a celebrity lookalike? Well, what if she's paid by the investors of the club to show up at the club dressed as Madonna to make the club have more provenance, to look like, the Hollywood elite or the cultural stars all hang out there, to kind of make it look better and more important? It's like, that's an interesting story. So why don't I go off of that? And then that's kind of how I start building the show. I see what kind of characters are popular in that era or in that world. And I go, okay, how do I twist it this way to make them a little bit more interesting, because if you're writing a story, no character can just be flat one
Right.
sort of thing. There has to be layers and layers. So I twist it this way, I move a little bit, then I twist it that way, and I move it a little bit forward. And then I start building the skeleton of who the cast is supposed to be. Who are these characters and what are they doing here? And then I start planning the plot, the actual mystery. And I don't actually start writing until I know who does it. I
Wow.
plan
Okay.
everything because to me, that's how I can control it best. I have worked in the past where I've been, when I was very, very young, baby writer, planning and stuff like that. And I just kind of write by the seat of my pants. I still do that sometimes. But for mysteries, for me, where I want to be sure that I can allow the audience or the reader to actually figure it out, I need to know what all of my pieces are so I can scatter them properly. Otherwise, it's not a fair game. It's, I didn't know what I was doing when I was writing it, so how can you figure it out? That to me doesn't feel fair. I want everyone to have a chance. I want it to be fun. So I plan out everything, like who does it, how, why. That's always the tenements of my mysteries is who, how, why. And I start from the victim. I work very much like Hercule Poirot does from Agatha Christie's. I start with the victim. Who is it? Why would they need to die? Why? And who would be most likely to need that to happen? What benefit would they accrue from it? And that's just how it starts. I start with the victim, and then I work out how did it happen. I try to make it interesting. I currently, with my company, have a no firearm policy in terms of our shows because of recent events and stuff like that. And I do not want the audience to ever think that if something was to happen, that it's part of the show, because that's unsafe. So we just have that as a policy at our company, is that we don't use fake firearms in any of the productions, because it's
there's a lot of other ways to kill somebody. So
there is, and there's a lot more interesting ways to do it. And I find a lot of younger writers or inexperienced writers, when they use firearms, don't tend to do the research properly and understand how it works. And a lot of people, if you don't know how to fire a gun, you're going to get yourself hurt. And they are like, Grandma just picked up the gun and started shooting everyone. No, with her arthritic hands that you gave her, the recoil is going to snap it back into her eyeball. That doesn't make sense. And so I don't do that sort of thing. And I like it to be kind of era appropriate, kind of thematic, because it's fiction. It's a form of fantasy. So it doesn't have to be grisly. I don't do violence on stage necessarily. We're very Greek theater tradition. All the violence happens off stage.
Right. Like my cozies. I mean, they find the dead person,
Yes. Yeah. And then that also means I spend less money on special effects and makeup and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They just lay there.
So we wanted to, for instance, with a 1920s mystery that I did, that's been the most revived show we've ever had. I did a hat pin, which is sort of strange, but that was the idea, was who would use a hat pin to murder someone in the age of bobbed and shingled hair? Because they were trying to throw off, make you think it was somebody else. So that is the sort of murders or crimes. If I do a murder mystery, because I don't always write murder mysteries for these shows. I've done robberies, especially for like kids. I don't want to write grisly murders. I write, funny, weird things. Like one I did a pirates themed one, and it was, who's trying to spread discord among the crew of the pirate ship.
Oh, that's cool.
That's it. We're doing one that's a revival of a show about Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
It's like, who is trying to capture Bigfoot?
Right.
Is the central mystery of that one. So
that's interesting. And then obviously then you have to deal with, because of whatever era, then you think about costumes, you think about, and then casting, because I've seen where you have tryouts and then you do a casting call, or, whatever, all the, and everybody's excited, you know, and
Yes, so we hold auditions. I never write anything necessarily with hard specifics in mind in terms of like age and stuff like that, because I find that's limiting for an acting pool, and I like having everyone come play. Hey, so if you ever are in Ridgecrest and you want to act, find Master Mystery Productions. We will accept you. We will teach you how to act, and it's always been great fun. So what I mostly listen to when I do auditions is voice. Sometimes that falls under accents, but we will also teach accents. We have voice coaches. And emotional range. Do they understand the idea of this character? You know, are they a diva? Are they kind of shy? Are they withdrawn? You know, all the different kind of character beats that are there that isn't in like hair or weight or eye color. You know, I don't care about all that. I just want that sort of actor. And then we have auditions. I cast the show, and I have often written new parts into a show because I've loved an actor so much. I'm like, I would hate to just say we don't have room for you. I'm just going to make room for you. So I'm going to make new parts and come up with different staging styles so that way everyone can come and play.
That's awesome.
That's how I love theater. It's like, let's everybody come in. Let's all have fun.
And I was in thespians when I was in high school. And I was always backstage, though. I was makeup and costumes. I did not want to be out in front. So for you, you also have quite a history of, you know, theater. So were you always up front, or were you in the back? Where would we find you?
In high school, I was the publicity director.
Okay.
I designed all the posters, the programs, the tickets. And my high school theater teacher said I was the best publicity director they ever had, because I love making posters. It's like my favorite thing to do. I love making a show's iconography. So that's what I mainly did in high school. It wasn't until college that I actually started acting and doing, you know, everything. And I've done everything in theater. I've acted, I've done makeup design, I put on my own makeup, costume design, lighting design, sound design, everything. I've done everything. So nowadays with my company, you will see me wearing every hat at some point.
Do you act?
Yes,
are you
I do.
Okay? So you're part of the cast sometimes.
Sometimes I always cast myself last in shows because I will only take a role if there isn't enough people to go around for the roles that I need.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's fair me being like, I'm the star. I'm never the star.
Right.
If I'm in a major role, it's usually because not enough men showed up to audition and we need a man in that role, so I have to take it. Or someone's dropped out and I have to fill the role. So.
Right. And I'm going to show a couple of your, I have some, these are some of the productions you've done. And this was called Who's Who. And I just want to show this. I mean, the costumes are amazing.
The woman in the ski mask and the Marie Antoinette wig designed the costumes for this production.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So, and then the upside down woman with the wolf ears is the makeup designer for this production.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. And then here's another one you did. And I just love this one.
Isn't that cute? Isn't that fun?
It is. And I love the way, you know, some of them are smiling and one's holding a mustache. And, you know, one of them, Calvin up there, he looks really like, yeah, right. You know,
he's the sleazeball in that show, or he was in that show.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can kind of, you know, and this was the Unlucky 7. And this was done in July of 2022. So
yes, this was show number 30.
Oh, wow. And here's another one. This was done, I don't know when, but
2019.
Okay, so this was a couple of years ago, but still another fascinating, you know, just, I love it.
Thank you. Well, one of the characters collected butterflies, and it was kind of a metaphor for they were obsessed with perfection and beauty, but they
Oh,
wanted to preserve it under glass and not let it grow old and stuff like
wow.
that. So we use that as a major metaphor for the show.
Wow.
And so I was like, this would be an interesting cast poster, is to have butterflies and give them all kind of scientific names, the characters. And
Oh,
also, when
yeah.
I look at a butterfly's eye spots, I was like, that'd be fun as like a mask.
Right.
That was,
Definitely. Yeah, especially the green one in the middle.
yep,
And then I'm going to show your, this is the one, this is Witness for the Prosecution. So this one, I think we did this one in high school or junior high. I mean, this is a well-known
yep,
play, and you're going to be doing this one. It shows it's coming up
yep,
in September.
yep. At the Community Light Opera and Theater Association's center stage in Ridgecrest. So
Okay. And just for people that are watching this that live a long ways away from California, Ridgecrest is kind of what's near Ridgecrest. I mean, it's kind of.
it's oh, my brain stopped.
I know we're a couple hours from Bakersfield, which
Yeah,
is an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. So
yeah, it's. Oh, I always get the directions mixed up. I think it's east of Bakersfield.
yes, you are east. You're in the mountains a little
Yes,
bit.
yeah. We're
Couple hours
about 2
from-
hours east of Bakersfield,
Yes.
in the middle of nowhere.
I've been there a long time ago, but I mean, it's amazing how in this small town you've done so much, and how you've given so many people an opportunity to be on stage, or probably backstage too. I mean, if
Oh yeah,
that's
we
what they
we
want
do
to do.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so right now you're the current president of
Mhm.
the Eastern Sierra branch. We talked about that. You've been president for 7 years, and in 2015 you won the Jack London Award for hard work, which is very prestigious. I know this because of being in Writers of Kern. It's an award given only every 2 years, and you can only get it once.
Yep.
So, as the recipient, it just shows that your branch really saw something in you, and you're still president and
Mhm.
still making things happen for them, which is great.
Yep. We've had a great run of new members. We have a full board. It's wonderful. I almost cried when they gave me the award, because it was kind of one of my like secret backdoor goals. I never go into things going, I want this, but at the same
Right.
time, I'm like, I want to work hard enough that if they give it to me, I will really appreciate it.
Right. And that you deserved it too. And I
Yes.
know you've been there for a long time and done a lot of amazing things. And as serving as president myself for our own club, I know what goes on. I mean, I know it's a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of responsibility, but to me, it was the funnest. It was the best. I mean, I loved helping writers,
Mm-hmm.
so it was amazing. So let's talk about your books.
Uh-huh.
We talk about your productions, but Daniel also has 2 books, and explain these books.
Okay, so these are the first 2 books in my Lee Johnson murder mystery series. He is a millennial minimum wage worker. The basic conceit is that I love Golden Age detective fiction. Agatha Christie, Nio Marsh, John Dixon Carr, all of those writers. And a lot of times when I read them, or even more recent cozies at time, there was a lot of lead characters who came from money or privilege or power or background and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what would happen if I wrote a character who did not have advantages, but he has the brain? It's kind of a series about the little guy, but making good and stuff like that. And kind of taking on these institutions and seeking justice for victims. And that was the kind of character I wanted, was, a character who was kind of beaten up by life, had a hard life, but was able, because of his brains and his essential humanity, which I felt was really important. There wasn't enough humanity in some of these older sleuths.
Right.
Was able to maybe right some wrongs by he's an amateur sleuth. He never gets into it. He's not a detective. He's, a bag boy at a grocery store.
So these are kind of like cozies. I mean, there's
yeah. They're amateur traditional mysteries.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Only because I'm a little shy of calling them cozies because they might be a little bit more strong in terms of content than a traditional cozy.
But they're definitely an amateur sleuth. It's not
yes.
Police procedural or something like that. So I love amateur sleuths. I think they're great.
I think amateur sleuths can get into the worlds better and can find out more about people than official channels can. Because if you're an official, people will hold things back.
Right.
But if
you're just the best friend, they're going to just spill it all, not thinking about it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the same point. Yeah.
Which is my fun thing because I always have the gossips in town that find out everything, So.
I have spies everywhere, but and I also wanted to explore kind of unloved places. We've had a lot of mysteries on a train, and I love there's nothing wrong with write wherever you want to, but I was like, we don't have a mystery set in a grocery store.
That's
and
true.
It's so common. We go there every day. How can I do that? And it's part of the challenge to me as a writer is, okay, how do you get away with a really complex, interesting murder in a grocery store? What would have to happen? So I spent a lot of time in random aisles in a grocery store thinking randomly.
Research, right?
And my parents being like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm plotting. Hold on.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah. So, and that's, I want mysteries that are contemporary, that are set in maybe not big fancy houses on trains or, stuff like that, which it's like golden age style for the digital age.
Right.
Is like how I like to think of them.
Now for yours, since it's a grocery store and I know that you can't just have it happen at a well-known name, do you make up a town? Do you have a made-up grocery? Yeah. Okay.
I have a fictional city and all of the buildings are fictional because I'm smarter than that.
Yep. I did the same thing. I even made a map of my town, and that way I can have anybody in town be the murderer. And I mean, it's definitely based on a real town. And if you're reading it, you'll know where it is. But I can have anybody be the murderer, and I'm not, or they can die in any building, and nobody's, going to get upset.
I don't base anything off of real people. I make everything up.
Yeah.
In my Lee Johnson series, one fun thing that I have is that all of the street names are based after victims in mystery novels.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. I was like, I need street names. What's an easy way to come up with street names? It's like, what if we name them all after, because they're like Rogers or Smith, and it's nice common names that you wouldn't know right away.
Right.
Okay. But if you're kind of in on the secret, it's a fun little Easter egg.
So I was gonna say that's the Easter egg in your books. Where you can look at it like, oh, I know who he's talking about here or whatever.
And I do kind of like, if there's like a specific business or something like that, say I put a hotel on that street and it's like it's all the hotels go on that street or something like that. Okay, who's like a famous victim in a mystery story that died in a hotel?
Oh, wow.
So that way it all kind of ties in together, and it's a fun little extra little mystery challenge for the reader. It's not something that it will ever count to where the story is, but it's just a fun little Easter egg to give us some extra fun.
Right. Plus for you, I'm sure it's a lot of fun. Like, where can I add this one? This was one of my favorite characters or something like that. That's awesome. So, we're almost at the end here, and I wanted to ask you. So, first of all, your show opening, the one in September, we talked about this, and you probably need to be kind of in the California area to come see it. And then and also in the description, there's going to be links to Daniel's, to his Master Mystery Productions, his Facebook page, and his actual website. So if you're interested, if you're close by and you want him to write a mystery production for you, I mean, he's the guy. I guarantee.
We also do digital productions. During the pandemic, I did a kind of radio show style, like 1930s radio show style,
Right.
inspired by Sherlock Holmes for a school in Indiana.
Oh, wow. Okay, well,
It's
there you go. You don't even have to be in California, so
no, that's I will make it work.
that's awesome. Um, so your new show opening in October, do you want to say anything about that? I don't
Yes,
have a poster or anything for
yeah,
it, so
we've just started rehearsals like yesterday,
okay.
so it's called Tet a Tete. It is set in 1920s Paris at the Sidewalk Cafe in the artistic scene of the left bank, and it is a sort of surrealist living painting of a story where we have bohemian artists gathered around and they all play the different suspects at different times. We have some interesting double casting. We're going to have some really artistic makeup and set design. And two of the artists are gathered together to try and figure out what happened when one of their patrons has been murdered, which has effectively destroyed their big commission.
Yeah.
And they get a little bit over their heads. Amateur sleuths don't always know when to keep quiet. So
Yeah.
it's a fun little quirky twist. It's the closing show of the season, and it is performing October 29th is when it opens, and then November 5th, November 12th, November 19th at 7:30 p.m. at the Forum Theater in Lone Pine.
Okay. Very cool. So my last question for you is advice for writers. And if they want to write mysteries, would you suggest they start with books first, go right into interactive mysteries? So, if somebody wanted to do what you do, what
All
would you
right.
suggest?
So my big suggestion is to read as many mysteries as you can. If you don't love mysteries, it's kind of hard to really get into mysteries because I say it's the easiest genre to practice writing because it's formulaic. You're like, I just have to talk to, crime, talk to suspects, reveal the answer. So it's really kind of easy to structure, but it's hard to master her. And I think the really good mystery writers put in the work. They want to really create great puzzles that entertain readers more and challenge them. So that way we have a little bit more fun with it. We want to surprise you. So read, read, read. Start with, I always like to say, start with Agatha Christie. She's the best. So if you start with the best, that's a good place to start. But there's also lots of current mystery writers you could read, for instance, like Joan Raymond.
Thank you.
Carolyn Hart, I absolutely adore, and she actually blurbed my 2 books, which was fantastic. She's, in my opinion, like the spiritual successor to Agatha Christie in terms of her quality of plotting. So, Nancy Pickard was great. P.D. James is a classic. There's Niall Marsh from the Golden Age. So, read, study, and kind of understand how it works. It's like understanding the music of good writing. And if you understand how a good mystery functions, you are better able to tackle it in any form. Really, that is where I think the best starting place is. And then start smaller and work your way up to it. So I would start with writing short stories, maybe some flash fiction, talk to your writers group about it. If you start a little bit smaller, you're able to kind of build up to it. Novels are hard. Novels are not, something that we just dream up and write in a day. Oh my gosh, I don't think I could ever do that. But and you will get there. You have to have some patience, but you will get there if you work at it. If you respect it enough and be like, I'm going to work at it, and then write what interests you. Don't pretend to be Agatha Christie. Nobody can except her.
Right.
So I don't pretend to be Agatha Christie. I write Daniel Stallings. So write what interests you, what makes you happy, what you think is important to write. Take the lessons that the past has given you as sort of a starting place, learn the rules, and then you can break the rules.
Yep. That's true. Once you learn the rules, you can break them, but you cannot break them until you know them.
Right? Because then you didn't know that you were breaking it in the first place.
Right. And you know, writers we can take a lot of chances after we know the beats and
Mhm.
what's kind of supposed to happen.
It's like when I wrote my first musical, murder mystery musical. That was show number 18.
Wow.
That
Wow.
I had a lot of writing, directing, theater experience way before I wrote and directed my first musical, and it was still really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And we're now on show number 30, and I still haven't done another one because it takes work. It takes a lot of, and I respect the genre and the medium so much and my performers that I don't want to rush it. I want to make sure we're doing it right.
So one last question, even though I said that was the last question. How long does it take you from concept research to get to finish? Not, I'm not talking about casting and auditions and whatnot. How long does it take you to actually write one of your productions?
Okay. So, actual physical writing, 3 weeks, which
Oh
sounds
my.
insane,
Yeah.
but I have been thinking about that show maybe for a year in advance.
Okay, so technically maybe a year
Yes.
from plotting and thinking and you know all. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically a year.
Mhm.
I have had to write shows. I think I did one in a week once because the money was good. And we're writers. I will take the job, and I'm like, okay, I have to write this whole show in a week. So I have masses amount, but I've been researching and working in this genre for 17 years.
Right.
So I started wanting to be a mystery writer at age 15. So I have been reading mysteries, loving mysteries, watching mysteries, playing mysteries for years and years and years. So I have a large backlog of,
Right.
ideas that I can pull from. But not everybody has that.
Right.
So I can only write a show in a week. I don't like to, but I can do it because I have this giant amount of information. But I
Right.
usually ask 3 months in advance if you really, you need it this year. Give me 3 months to come up with something.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, that sounds more like, okay, I can do this, you know,
Yeah.
because there is plotting and all those other things. So, Daniel, thank you. This was amazing. I enjoyed it because since I'm a cozy writer and, you know, what you do is way beyond what I do, but and just knowing how I mean, watching it in person the one time, it's just fascinating to see it picked apart and how you actually do it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. And I just want to say thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm interviewing authors once a week, and I've got a lot of amazing people that I'm talking to, like Daniel today. So, anyway, take care, and we'll see you next time.